In other news, just weeks after declaring the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps a terrorist organization, President Donald Trump is now pushing to extend the designation to the Muslim Brotherhood, a group that many in the Middle East have already denounced or banned. And this reportedly at the behest of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Well, returning now to analyze how this new designation might affect the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliates is Dr. Martin Sherman, founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. Dr. Sherman, thank you so much for coming back in today.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Okay, so I guess my first question is, should the Muslim Brotherhood actually be designated a terrorist organization? How will that affect the Middle East, and how will that affect American kind of dealings with the relations with the Middle East?
Well, I don't think it's going to be an easy move for Trump. It might be a little bit of a case of overreach, although the fact is that various countries have designated it
and the United States Supreme Court has also leaned that way.
But not only that, Russia has declared it a terrorist organization. It finds no difficulty
Egypt, the Saudis, the
conducting
UAE,
relations with Turkey, for instance. Mm-hmm. So, again, with many things like the designation of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, like the reinstatement of sanctions, a lot depends on the sustainability of the Trump regime, because there is a lot of resistance to this within the United States. In the professional bureaucracy, there's a lot of resistance to it. Amongst the intelligentsia, there's a lot of resistance to it. And the claim is that the Muslim Brotherhood is not really a structured organization. Millions of people belong to it. It does many things that are not violent. In fact, it's renounced violence since the 1970s, reportedly, allegedly. But there is the Muslim Brotherhood is basically the ideological precursor for a lot of terrorist organizations, and in fact, it interfaces with terrorist organizations like Hamas. So, I think it's going to be a tough call for Trump to push this through. But there is a strong case that can be made for saying that the Muslim Brotherhood should be watched very carefully.
All right, so watching them very carefully, I understand, and even designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, I understand. What's interesting to me, though, is how likely do you think this move suddenly to push the Muslim Brotherhood into this designation? Do you think it's just for political points, or do you think that there's maybe even a secondary move that might be following this, namely going after CAIR?
Well, so, it will put CAIR in a very difficult position, because if the Muslim Brotherhood is designated a terrorist organization, any bodies interacting with it and having a relationship will be subject to punishment and sanctions. So it'll put CAIR in a very difficult position. I think it'll cause a great uproar in the Muslim community, and as opposed to Russia and Saudi Arabia and places like that where the regime gives orders and everyone obeys, I think you'll probably find a lot of pushback in the United States. I think it does show, though, that Trump is very resolute in combating Islam. Because, whereas in Saudi Arabia and other countries like the United Arab Emirates, the Muslim Brotherhood may be a danger to the regime. In the United States, Islam is a danger not only is a danger to the way of life, not just to the regime, because you can not think of anything more incompatible with each other than the Quran and Sharia law on one hand, and the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights on the other. These are just two incompatible perspectives on life, and it's in the long run, both of them will not be able to live together in harmony unless one dominates the other. And clearly, the Muslim Brotherhood is looking for the Sharia and the Quran to dominate the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights, although it manages to survive and operate because of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
Right. All right, well, again, kind of maybe the other end of that, if the Muslim Brotherhood is designated a terrorist organization, how likely do you think that How likely do you think the failure to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization bears on the fight against terror within the United States? Do you think that it's prevented the United States from acting where it maybe needed to or should have?
Well, it's certainly given them much more freedom to act. The overarching ideology of a global caliphate is common to both the allegedly non-violent Muslim Brotherhood and the overtly violent other organizations. And so under that cover, I think that certainly Muslim organizations associated with terror have greater freedom to act. I'm just wondering what the effect of the blowback would be, and how long this resolute stance against Islam in the United States will be maintained. A lot depends on the result of the next election, because the whole thing could be walked back. Many of the moves that Trump has made, the positive moves that Trump has made, may be walked back by a Democratic successor, and then all you'll be left with is the bad taste in the mouth.
All right, Dr. Sherman, as always, thank you so much for coming in.